I bought me a guitar from Sears Roebuck when I was about 14 years old. I just loved to emulate all the singers, not realizing I was preparing myself for something like this.
When people say that life is rough, I wonder compared to what?
I don't know what it would be like being Charley Pride. I know it's hard enough for me being Dolly Parton.
I'm just me.
He said, I want to do country music, and he didn't think anything was strange about it.
Just being able to say, I'm accepted just like everybody else, and people like me for who I am, that's a very powerful statement in of itself.
He's one of the first people to go, here's my talent, let's celebrate that. Oh, by the way, I'm a black man.
It's an angel good morning.
No person of color had ever done what he was doing.
Charley Pride, being the only one and thinking about that and what that must have meant, sort of knocked me out.
I just try to be exactly what you see today and every day. I'm just me.
Charley Pride's prolific career in country music is brimming with chart-topping hits and millions of album sales. What isn't noticed on the album covers is his uncharted pathway to success, breaking through country music's color barrier.
I knew he grew up as a country boy, and I knew that we talked a lot about, about our upbringing, about how poor we were, fetching water and growing our own food and having to, raise the food.
Deep in the heart of the South, Charley Pride was one of the 11 children born into a rural home of poor cotton pickers in Sledge, Mississippi in 1934.
Your hometown of Abbott is bigger than my hometown of Sledge.
Yeah.
We were only 500 population. Yours was bigger than that.
Maybe now, but it wasn't back then. It
Really?
was like 300 and something back
Really?
then. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And the population never changes, because every
It
time a
hadn't
baby
left.
is born, a man leaves town.
Charley's mother, Tessie, was gentle and supportive of her son's interests and ambitions, while his father, Mac, was often strict and harsh.
See, cotton can open under the leaves and outside the leaves, too. I'm picking beside my dad, and he's got 2 rows, and I got 2 rows, but I'm keeping right up with him, you see. And this time, I'm going to beat him when we go to the scales. So we get to the end of the rows. They weigh mine, took mine off, put my dad's up there. About 20 or 30-pound difference. I said, it can't be. I look back, my rows are just as clean as his. He said, now, son, let me tell you something. He says, there's an art to everything. I never forgot that.
They put young people in those fields, 11 and 12 and 13 years old. You had to carry the sack, and you drag it along, and it got heavier as the day went along. And yes, there's burrs in cotton in its baking sun, and there's no relief.
We always would sharecrop, sharecropping wasn't too hard. Like if you own the land, we made 10 bales, you automatically got your 5 bales, and we got ours, but you're in a continuous cycle of debt all the time, so you never got out of debt. My dad, he bought a Philco radio, and that's what we listened to before we go out in the field. Didn't nobody handle the knobs on that radio but my dad.
The development of high-wattage radio stations like WSM were incredibly influential on rural communities during the 1940s. These new airwaves would fuel the imaginations of isolated communities.
Radio was theater of the mind. I'm sure as a kid he was sitting there with his eyes closed going, I can be this, I can be that.
His daddy did not like rhythm and blues. He liked Ernest Tubb, Roy Acuff. He listened to the Grand Ole Opry. That had a great bearing on Charley.
The Grand Ole Opry started as a radio show, the WSM Barn Dance, in 1925. And just very quickly, it became kind of the place to be and perform if you were anybody in this new genre of music. DeVord Bailey was a harmonica player, grew up in Nashville, and was called the harmonica wizard.
They recognized that DeFord Bailey gave the Opry this really important flavor. His way of playing reminded the audience of stuff that was very much a part of their lives, especially the Pan American blues, where he made the harmonica sound like a train, speeding up and rushing past and blowing the whistle.
Also born into a family of sharecroppers, the legendary Jackie Robinson would break the baseball color barrier in 1947 by becoming the first African-American player in the major leagues.
When Jackie Robinson went to the major leagues, I was picking cotton beside my dad, and I said to myself, I said, here's my way out of the cotton field.
There would not be ample resources for a young man to pursue a baseball career in Charley Pride's situation in Sledge, Mississippi at that time. Even with Jackie Robinson as a constellation to point to.
If you didn't have the necessary equipment, you made it up. You rolled that sock, and you put that aluminum foil into that sock, and you rolled it up, and you took your mama's broomstick, or whatever was necessary. The desire to compete was just as strong.
With the support of his mother, Tessie, 18-year-old Pride headed to Memphis in search of a baseball career and made his debut in the Iowa State League in 1952.
Through barnstorming and other opportunities, people were being introduced to this professional brand of black baseball. And so I think it absolutely fueled some dreams for some young people aspiring to play.
Black men have been playing baseball around this country forever. To play in the majors was always going to be a challenge. That Jackie Robinson path was rough.
Somehow Charley was born with baseball inside him. He probably didn't know it when he was a kid, but as soon as it had a chance to come out, it was in there, and it came out.
There were a lot more obstacles in front of Mr. Pride's dream than there might have been mine or somebody from my generation. So I didn't see a lot of Rolls Royces in that part of the country, so you had to want to get there, and you had to go for it.
Segregation is segregation, and the South was particularly brutal. And I just feel like when you have a gift and people help you nurture that gift so that it can rise above, because you didn't find a lot of Charley Prides.
Charley quickly moved up to pitcher outfielder for the Memphis Red Sox in the Negro American League. There, he pitched well enough to get signed by the Yankees' Class C team in Boise, Idaho.
The baseball field was almost their sanctuary. Their challenges came traveling the highways and byways of our country, not knowing where they can stop to get a meal, not knowing where they could use the restroom. Those were the hardships. I think for Charley, having played in the Negro Leagues, perhaps toughened him.
Many people argue that the Negro Leagues were actually full of more talent than Major League Baseball.
What I'd like to do is break all them records and set new ones. When they say, who hit the most home runs? Not Babe Ruth, Charley Pride. Who was the last 400 hitter? Not Ted Williams, Charley Pride. That's what I would have liked to have done.
In 1956, still pursuing his love of the game, Charley returned to Memphis for another season, sporting a newly developed knuckleball. He went on to win 14 games, make the All-Star team, pitching against baseball superstars Willie Mays, Hank Aaron, and Ernie Banks, meeting lifelong baseball fan and love of his life, Rosine Cohen, who was a little skeptical of her new suitor.
I didn't talk to him at first, no.
So what I did, I went and bought a record, the Ames Brothers. It only hurts for a little while. That's what they tell me. And I called her back and told her I left a record over there. She kept that record all the way up until I went in the Army.
Charley's baseball career was interrupted in late 1956 when he received a draft notice and was ordered to report to Fort Chaffee, Arkansas for basic training.
Did you miss me or what?
Yeah,
Oh, he thought I was going to go out with somebody else.
because I would try to call and she didn't answer. I said, I want to go out with somebody else. And they let me come home for Christmas, married on my dad's birthday, December 28th.
With Rosine and Charley being a team and an economic team, they were following in a powerful Black tradition of seeing partnerships, marriages as vivid partnerships that are inclusive and mutually respectful.
As a teenager, I said I would never marry an athlete or entertainer. I got both in one. Never say never.
Rain dripping off the brim of my hat. It sure is cold today. And here I am walking down 66. Wish she hadn't done me that way. Sleeping under a table in a roadside park. A man could wake up dead. But it sure seems warmer than it did sleeping in our king-size bed.
After basic training, Charley was stationed at Fort Carson, Colorado, where he was assigned to quartermaster duty, played on the fort's baseball team, and sang at the Officers Club at night to entertain the troops. Released after 14 months and having never been deployed, he rejoined the Memphis Red Sox for one more baseball season. But the compensation wasn't enough to support his growing family, so Charley answered an ad in the Sporting News.
Said baseball players capable of playing A-ball right this summer, and I got a reply from Missoula, Montana, and it says get in as good a shape as you can. I borrowed $400 and left $200 with her and took off.
In the early 60s, Charley Pride wanted to play for the Missoula Timberjacks, a minor league baseball team. He decided to drive all the way out there from Memphis on his own.
When baseball is in your soul, you just go to where you need to go so that you can keep playing it.
Charley was cut after just 4 games with the Timberjacks. At that time, Montana had the lowest African-American population in the United States, but offered Pride a chance to avoid the segregated South.
He gets a job in a smelting plant out there, and the smelting plant kind of has a semi-pro baseball team, which he joins, and he's able to play baseball, albeit not on the track to be in the major leagues.
The working conditions at the smelter were rough, but spirits on the field and in the locker room were high. After games, the team would frequent local bars where Charley would be encouraged to pick up a guitar and sing a few songs. Life there led him to discover that music could transcend the worst of human nature.
His landlady hears him singing and thinks, you're really talented, singing between innings. And so she gets him his first gig at a Helena, Montana nightclub.
I got a feeling called a blues, oh Lord, since my baby said goodbye. Hey Lord, I don't know what I do. All I do is sit and sigh, oh Lord, that last long day she said goodbye.
Well, I started off by myself in a little club called the Main Tavern, making about $20 a day.
Well, I'm in love with a beautiful gal. Say what's the matter with me? Well, I'm in love with a beautiful gal, but she don't care about me.
I graduated from there to Anaconda. The guy said he'd pay me $40. I'd drive 80 miles to Anaconda, sing in his club.
Hey, well, I'm nobody's sugar daddy now. Well, I'm lonesome. I've got the lovesick blues.
You have to do that apprenticeship. You have to play the clubs, at least in that era. That was absolutely part of coming up, was the grind and the putting in the 10,000 hours, and knowing how to reach an audience and how to handle hecklers.
Day and every day, I'm just me.
Montana would probably be the most unlikely place to start a country music career, but it worked for Charley Pride. Merle Haggard recalled once he had a concert in Montana, he needed an opening act, and he got Charley Pride to be his opening act.
I didn't like the cold, the cold weather, but I loved the people there and kind of got ahead there.
In 1962, Montana's local DJ, Tiny Stokes, arranged for Charley to audition for a couple of well-known country music performers, Red Foley and Red Sovine. The Reds were impressed and invited him to perform on stage later that night.
He said something to them to the effect, could you tell those people back in Nashville about me?
In 1963, during an uninvited tryout with the New York Mets in Clearwater, Florida, Charley accepted that his childhood dream of a career in baseball was over.
I got the chance, but I was so desperate. I think I was so nervous and tried to look so good when I first got in camp. So all in all, I think that was a lot against me.
He got a bus ticket back home to Montana with a stop in Music City. In Nashville, the civil rights movement was intensifying, and Charley took a chance and knocked on doors to see if Red Sovine and Red Foley's endorsement of his music had gotten through.
Charley went to Cedarwood Publishing Company, and he speaks to a very nice lady on the front desk, and he looks past her and he sees Webb Pierce. He had dominated this business at one time. So Charley practically leaped over her desk.
I said, "Is that Mr. Pierce?" He said, "Yeah, can I speak to him?" So I went and spoke to him.
And went back and said, "Mr. Pierce, my name is Charley Pride, and I'm from Montana, and I sing country music, and I've come to sing for you." And Webb said, "Well, I'm not happy to meet you, Charley, but I do my own singing."
I said, "No." So, you know how you say something and say wrong. I just remember it coming off like that.
Webb Pierce, a country music star of the era, was known for his silver dollar-studded cars, guitar-shaped swimming pools, and 13 Billboard chart-topping singles.
Webb told me that he called for one of the guys that worked there, Jack Johnson. He said, "Take this kid down to the studio and record him, and I'll listen to the tape."
After a quick demo recording session, Johnson, surprised by the characteristics in Charley's voice, he said, "Sing in your natural voice." Charley responded, "This is my natural voice." Recognizing the precarious but enormous opportunity, Jack Johnson offered to manage Pride's career and personally drove him back to Nashville bus station to ensure he wouldn't knock on any other doors on Music Row.
When I got back home, there was a contract waiting.
To be a black kid coming to Nashville, the civil rights movement was in full swing. You know, the sit-ins and all the protests that were going on over the country, and start knocking on doors of country music labels saying, "I want to sing country music." And that's huge.
He had turned me over to Jack Clement. They picked out 7 songs to give to me when I come through Nashville. When Jack started producing me, Jack Clement, he says, "Who is Charley Pride? What do you want?" I said, "Well, I want to go in the studio and make as good a records as I can, go out on stage and do them even better, get my own publishing company." He said, "I got a publishing company." I said, "Yeah, but you asked me what did I want to do." I said, "I'm telling you." Well, he said, "That might be your downfall."
What I knew about Jack Clement was Jack was one of those guys that if he thought the odds were against him, that made him happier than if they were for him.
Where's my 15-piece band? Well, I moved here in the 60s. And at that time, there wasn't a whole lot of players here. There was a couple of bands full, or 2 or 3, but there was not nearly the players here then as there are now. But there were some real good ones and some good studios, and things were happening pretty good in the 60s, actually. That's when I first did Charley Pride.
He chose most all of the things that we recorded, especially way up into just about all the while we were together. But he would always let me give my opinion on which song I like or didn't like.
Cowboy Jack Clement was the perfect producer for Mr. Pride. That stretch of records that Cowboy Jack Clement and Mr. Pride made together, along with Nashville's finest musicians, and the songs as the centerpieces of those things, they're all masterful events. Would you sing just between you and me for me?
Yes.
We'll dedicate this to Cowboy Jack Clement.
So I feel so blue, sometimes I wanna die. And so I've got a broken heart, so they say that time will heal all wounds in mice and men. And I know that someday I'll forget and love again.
Cowboy Jack would be responsible for launching some of the most unique musical careers, including George Jones, Waylon Jennings, and Johnny Cash.
But just between you and me, I've got my doubts about it. But just between you and me, you're too much to forget.
Johnny Cash probably got Cowboy on the right rails to produce Charley because it was a low voice, had a lot of dimension, it had a lot of overtones and nuances.
There isn't a lot of road work between Charley Pride's heart and his vocal cords. That's a straight and narrow shot.
Down at the railroad station, there's people getting on. Some are going north and some are going south. I'm just going to be gone. Some people are born to be takers. Others just want to give. Some people live just to love. But I just love to live. I was just born to be exactly what you see. Nothing more or less. Not the worst or the best. I just try to be exactly what you see. Today and every day, I'm just me.
If an artist had his own sound and style with a band and they were cooking, I wanted to get that in the studio. I've always tried to deal with artists in terms of where they're at, what their music is right now. And the studio is like where you sort of go in and harvest it.
This is Lloyd Green, which when I first went in the studio, he was Jack Clement's #1 steel player and mine for a long time.
The musicians, quite frankly, were as important as the artists in those days. They were contributory to the success or the sound of the record.
Jack Clement, he was a character. I only had been in the studio maybe once or twice in my life when he said to Jack Johnson, he said, I think he's ready.
Chet Atkins, a powerhouse producer, guitar virtuoso, and rising executive at RCA's country music division, became convinced of Pride's potential.
Chet called and said, have you done anything with that? And I hate to use the term, but that's what he said, that Colored Boys songs. And Jack said, no, I'm pitching him, though. I might have a deal coming up. And Chet said, well, bring it by and let me hear it one more time. He said, you know, I might be passing up another Elvis.
Chet Atkins had to be a visionary, to be the one to say, I'm going to sign this person. I know what this is probably going to mean, but I think that Chet really saw the gift.
And he took it out to Monterey, California, to all the big wigs. And they looked, all of them looked around and say, you sound a good voice. I said, what me? I said, now, I don't know whether he said he's colored or he showed the picture, but it was like a pause, you know. Unanimously, they said, we're going to release the record. We ain't going to say nothing. And that's what they did. They said, you're going to be on RCA. I said, is that good? And they laugh about it now. It's the biggest label in the world.
Just as Branch Rickey integrated Major League Baseball with Jackie Robinson, Chet Atkins was determined to integrate country music with his new artists.
Oh, the snakes call it night. That's what they say. When the sun goes down, then the snakes will play.
Presuming the country music DJs would be skeptical about playing a black artist on their stations, in 1966, RCA released Charley's first single without the standard promotional photo and biography. If there was anything the country music business dreaded more than controversy, it was a bad investment.
I was a disc jockey in Mobile, Alabama, and I'd gotten some rumors that, quote, we were going to get, a record from a black guy that sang country music. And, we didn't have any records of black guys. So the fact that there simply was no knowledge, there was not the mass communications, there was no video, there was no pictures.
The day that his music first came out, they didn't put his picture on it. And so DJs were playing his music all around the country. And then when he went on the radio tour on television, they're like, oh, well, we didn't know that.
While on stage at the Big D Jamboree in Dallas, Willie Nelson had kissed Charley right on the lips in front of a packed house. The indelible kiss, along with the endorsement of other top country musicians, helped Charley win over his new audience.
It's Willie's way of saying, if I'm kissing him on the lips, you got to be okay with listening to him.
Oh. I got you back, huh? I've been wanting to do that for so many years.
Oh, I know you have. You do it so well.
Jack Johnson, my one and only manager I ever had. He said, Charley, we're going to Nashville. You're going to have to get by some folks.
everybody had told me that how the Nashville music community reacted or accepted Charley Pride or didn't accept him was based on how Farron Young reacted to him.
Known as the hillbilly heartthrob and as an outspoken hard-ass, Farron Young was one of country music's most successful and colorful characters.
We were playing pool one night at Farron's place, I think, some bar or something. And the governor of Tennessee was there. Farron had run the table down to just had one ball left, the 8-ball, which was about this far from the pocket. So he was talking about what a great friend the governor was, you know, and how proud and honored he was to have him in his place. And he said, "Here, Governor, make that ball for me." And the governor missed it. And he said, "Well, you wall-eyed son of a bitch."
He said that?
Yeah, to the governor.
Farron was a feisty little guy who got in fights. He was unpredictable. He was pretty redneck. If he liked Charley, then everybody was going to like Charley.
When we get to Nashville, we go all these bars looking for him. We finally found him. See, when you meet Farron Young, he's probably going to give you the N-word and everything. Jack ran up, he said, "Farron," he says, "why don't you meet Charley Pride?" His shoulders went like that. "Charley Pride, you sing a fine song." I said, "You do too, Farron." We did about maybe 2 or 3 songs a piece or something like that. He said, "You know what? Here I am singing with a jig and don't mind it." No. That's what he said. I said, "I was waiting for you to say the big one." I said, "I was going to say, you little puckered mouth bandy rooster, man."
Charley Pride must have an incredible ability to let things go and shrug things off his shoulders that would cripple or choke another person.
Charley's ability to win over audiences one by one was a combination of the early advice from his mother and his experiences in Montana. He remained steadfast and let his music be the vaccine to possible prejudices.
I didn't hear that much about it other than what I would hear in the papers or just somebody making a deal about how could they let a black man be in country music. Well, why not?
Dolly Parton had a pretty good way of disarming everybody before they could say a word, or she knew what they were thinking. And that it was her job to make them think that. Then it was her job to make them, think another way. And Mr. Pride, I think, had a lot of that same genius about him.
But just between you and me, I've got my doubts about it. But just between you and me, you're too much to forget.
With Charley's third single, Just Between You and Me, breaking the top 10 on the country charts, the Pride team of Cowboy Jack, Chet Atkins, and Jack Johnson were ready to put Charley on the road.
Charley Pride's first big stage show was in Detroit. He had 3 singles out, but people didn't know he was black. His name was announced and there was this huge amount of applause. Then he steps into the spotlight, silence.
The day I introduced Charley Pride in Detroit has remained in my memory to this day. I remember Charley coming out. He didn't attempt to sing at first. He had his guitar strapped over his shoulder. He was kind of like this. And he put his arms up on his guitar. He said, "I realize I've got that permanent tan, but my name's Charley Pride and I am from Mississippi. My daddy was a farmer down there, and I sing country music. And I want to entertain you if you'll let me."
Then he started singing. The applause came back.
Have you ever been there on a Friday night, down in the quarter when the moon was bright? All together kind of living life down in Louisiana, where they buy your runs by the side of the road, sugar cane and cotton grove.
I said, if I can get in front of them, they don't care nothing about no pigmentation.
The first mom and papa called a little boy Ned, raised him on the banks of the river bed. A houseboat tied to a big tall tree, home of my papa and my mama and me. The clock strike 3, papa jumps to his feet, already mama cooking papa something to eat. And 5:30 papa keeps the bed ready to go. He jump around his pirogue, headed down the
it never did happen. I've never had one catcall or iota like Jackie Robinson went through in my whole career. To this very moment, when that question is asked and I say, no, I haven't, I get that, I can't believe look. You got to be kidding look. I don't believe you.
He was accepted by audiences. His career blossomed very rapidly once they started putting records out on RCA.
Before the end of the year, Charley released his first full album.
That was a decision to call me Country Charley Pride. And I think that was a point, too, to emphasize fully that I wasn't, by looking at the pigments, it wasn't no fluke or that sort of thing.
At that time, if you really wanted to hit the big time, you came through me. I laughed to myself. They put on the record Country Charley Pride. And I'm sure that they wanted all the disc jockeys to know that he was a country singer.
It's just one of those wonderful country records of the era that
it did
defined country music when it didn't require more than one definition.
That's crazy that Cowboy Jack at that time would go, this could work. You know, it's crazy to think. But the thing that Charley had that was undeniable, and he still has, was that voice.
Oh, the snakes will ignite. That's what they say. When the sun goes down, then the snakes will play.
He would just pick songs that were different and unusual, like who would have thought of the snakes crawl at night? You know, talking about just wild, mean people getting out doing terrible things.
Country music hadn't included a single African-American performer since D. Ford Bailey. Life and inspiration would come full circle with Charley's debut performance on the Grand Ole Opry stage.
I mean, January 1st, 1967. Ernest Tubb brought me on the stage. I was scared.
It really wasn't until he walked out on the Opry stage that I think that audience saw him for the first time.
See, they call Mama Reed and my daddy Jack, a little baby brother on the floor that's Mac.
I know it was a big time for him. It meant a lot to him, probably more than he would have even said, because that is what he grew up with.
With steel guitar player and friend Lloyd Green by his side, Charley made his network TV debut on one of the top primetime variety shows.
We think you will enjoy our special guest this evening, a gentleman who really knows how to sing country songs, Charley Pride. Let's give him a nice welcome.
So I feel so blue, sometimes I wanna die. And so I've got a broken heart. So what?
American music is made up of gospel, country, and the blues. Those three. And I think each one borrowed from the other over the years that I've grown up and listened to the music.
And I know that someday I'll forget and again. But just between you and me, I've got my doubts about it. 'Cause just between you and me, too much to forget.
On April 4th, 1968, Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated while supporting striking workers in Memphis, Tennessee. African Americans across the country were rallying. Memorials and marches were punctuated by sporadic violence. Tanks passed through the neighborhood streets of Nashville. The Grand Ole Opry canceled its first performance in 43 years. And Charley Pride, scheduled to perform, contemplated what to do.
I was in Big Springs, Texas. I was touring with a guy by the name of Guy Mitchell. We were at the hotel, and it came down that it happened. Guy Mitchell, when he heard, he said, I can't go. We're sold out. This is on me. Am I going to go and do the show? I said, I'm going to do the show. I got me a cab. On the way out to the show, the dispatcher told the driver, he said, they got him. That's Martin Luther King. He said, yeah, really? He said, I got one here I'm taking to a show right now. I got one here. So I didn't say a word. I got out of the cab. I got on stage. Nobody said nothing, but they applauded. I got a standing ovation. I didn't say nothing about nothing pertaining to what had happened. But it was hanging there, what had happened. And me, the only one there with these pigmentation. You don't forget nothing like that.
By 1969, Charley was celebrating a #1 Billboard country single.
For you to wear. Everything I have is standing here in front of you to see. All I have to offer you is me.
All I have to offer you is me. After it's a million seller and everybody loves it, instead of talking about, well, it's that voice sticking out that gave it that little extra fullness.
The fact that he sang so much better than so many of the good country artists were at the time, them good old white boys. And Charley just really gave them a run for their money.
It scared them. People around here get scared real easy.
Sweetheart, I'll give you all my love in every way I can. But make sure that's what you want while you're still free.
He and Elvis were so significant to RCA Records that they paid careful attention because they were selling millions of records.
While acclimating to the lifestyle that comes with being on the road and touring internationally, Charley was hospitalized after experiencing bouts of paranoia, insomnia, and confusion.
First, I didn't have no idea what it was, and it started in Germany. Over to entertain the troops, and I thought I just was overworked. You know, I stayed up doing 2 shows a night sometime.
He got a startling diagnosis, bipolar disorder.
They told us, but he didn't accept it. And it took a couple of episodes when he became very manic. And then he realized that he had to take the medicine. There have been many people who have come to us and said, I decided to take my medicine because you did.
Fame can take you out there and dance in a strange way sometimes. And it's wonderful to have somebody at home to go, we need to go to the car wash, you know, and let's see about this. But I applaud him for taking those steps because, you know, just to exist in this business, you know, it's a full-time squirrel job.
With the closest major airport 90 miles from their home in Helena, a growing international tour schedule, and a family of 5, Charley desired to simplify.
Charley said, everywhere I go, I got to leave a day early because I have 2 or 3 stops, flights, and I can't make it work in the same way getting back, and I want to move to someplace. He didn't want to move to Nashville. I suggested they ought to consider Dallas.
When he went off to Texas, he staged his campaign from down there, from behind his own curtain. And I thought that was pretty splendid. That was pretty wise. It's good to have, you know, a place of retreat where you can see things clearer.
Charley Pride!
The country music male vocalist of the year is Charley Pride.
The 70s started with a run of awards and string of hit records that would catapult Charley into bona fide superstardom. In 1971, he would release his soon-to-be signature song.
You've got to kiss an angel good morning. Let her know you think about her when you're gone. Kiss an angel good morning. Love her like the devil when you get back home.
Throughout the 1960s and 70s, country artists like Johnny Cash, Patsy Cline, Tammy Wynette, and Charley Pride would achieve a new level of success by crossing over into the pop charts.
Charley was a country act. He didn't get played on pop radio until he had a song called Kiss an Angel Good Morning, which was a huge record for him in the pop world.
Some glad morning when this life is o'er, I'll fly away.
Charley's faith and spirituality would present itself on his 2-time Grammy Award-winning album, Did You Think to Pray?
Oh, I'll fly away, oh, glory, I'll fly away in the morning.
We relate in the same way to God. We've talked about that a lot too. We don't believe you have to cram it down somebody else's throat. I mean, if it's working for you personally, then that should be how you relate to God. Everybody should do it in their own way.
My bride, I call her my bride. She said, why don't you call Dolly Parton and see if she got a good gospel song? I said, I'm not going to call Dolly. Well, I'll do it.
That's a true story. She called me to say that he loved my song, God's Coloring Book. And he said, would you let me record it? I said, only if you let me sing it with you.
And the multicolored rainbow stretched across the sky, and the purple haze at sunset just before the night. And the more I look around me, the more that I do look, the more I realize that I am viewing God's coloring book.
He understands God. He knows what he's doing here, why he's put here, where he's going. And that's always a good place to be.
He is all around me. He's everywhere I look, and each new day is but a new page in God's coloring book.
Over the years, I've just admired her so much. She's a songwriter, businesswoman, I mean, the whole bit. And like I say on stage, and she's rich, too.
Recognizing the multiple talents of his contemporaries, Charley set out to put his skills to use and conquer the business side of country music.
I always wanted to be as good a businessman as I was an entertainer. Jack Johnson, we were the best 1-2 punch managing artists in the business. We thought about starting a publishing company, and he was a Gemini and I was Pisces, so we called it Pie Jam.
In our world, there's songwriting and then there's publishing. If you're a writer-artist, both of them are incomes for you.
So, why not start a publishing company and hire some songwriters and make some money off some songwriters? And it was a genius move for him.
I think he respected what they did, and he wanted to cultivate that. So you got a little money, why not buy into something that you love?
I noticed a long time into my career that I wasn't a songwriter.
Charley Pride, with his talent, probably enhanced a lot of songs while he was recording them by making the lyric more him or making it work better, and not took any credit either. But that, again, that's what great artists do.
Over the span of his 50-year career, Charley amassed more than 52 top 10 country hits and went on to sell tens of millions of records worldwide.
I'm a very blessed person. I'm telling you, I record about 400 and some songs.
497 to be exact. If you did them all, you'd be up here 24 hours and 38 minutes. I'll pull out some other stuff to show you.
I got all this Japanese. I don't read Japanese.
And this is a Hong Kong issue of your very first album. I think I showed you this once before.
That's my first.
Yellow vinyl.
Yeah.
They misspelled here. The Sankeys Crawl at Night. S-A-N-K-E-S. This is from Chile.
Chile?
Where do I put a memory?
Where do I put it?
You're my Jamaica, Dallas Cowboys.
That was a good cut.
Down on the Farm, Let a Little Love Come In. Best There Is, Love on a Blue Rainy Day, every RCA single. Yeah, Jimmy Carter had all those made.
Now, I want first crack at it. If you go before I do, we don't work out something.
It's like a children's book, but it just talks about him.
That Papa there, when he was in the cotton fields back home.
It reminds me of what I don't ever want to go back to doing because it hurts my fingers and my back and my knees, and it goes like this. When I was a little bitty baby, my mommy would rock me in the cradle in them old cotton fields by the home.
Going back and listening to all the songs that I recorded, they're much, much better than I thought they were when I was doing them. I mean, it's just that I listened, I said, oh, I did pretty good.
I worked with him on a special when we did Country at the White House. It was the first African-American president, and here we had the first African-American artist in country music on the bill.
Welcome to the White House. Tonight we celebrate country music. We are thrilled and honored to be joined by Brad Paisley and Charley Pride.
Playing the White House for the first African-American president with really the first sort of mega successful African-American country music singer who had been a friend of mine since I was a teenager. It was very poetic.
Well, when them cotton bolls get rotten, you can't pick a very much cotton in
back home. Yes, it was down in Louisiana, just about a mile from Texarkana. In them old cotton fields back home. Oh, now, Gina.
Charley's a fighter, for one. And he's not afraid to kind of do things his own way, kind of be a trailblazer.
When I was a little bitty baby, my mommy would rock me in the cradle. In them old cotton fields back home. Yes, when I was a little bitty baby, my mommy would rock me in the cradle. In them old cotton fields back home.
Charley Pride might not have made it to the Baseball Hall of Fame at Cooperstown, but ironically, when the Country Music Hall of Fame was first established in the 60s, they used Cooperstown as the model. Charley might not have gotten his dream to be in Cooperstown. Being in the Hall of Fame is right up there.
Charley's unique contribution to country music has continually been recognized, receiving the Academy of Country Music's Pioneer Award, a Trumpet Award, which celebrates African Americans who achieved greatness, being inducted into the Grand Ole Opry, having a Charley Pride star added to the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and receiving a Lifetime Achievement Award alongside the father of country music, Jimmie Rodgers, whose music filled Pride's childhood home on that old Philco radio back in Sledge, Mississippi.
Everything he's accomplished as a human being and as a singer and as a groundbreaking African-American country singer, we're talking about a person that deep down was the most helpful and kind of anyone that I met.
I think the history books unfairly will mostly note that Charley Pride was a great country singer who was African American. You can take off the African American part.
He's one of America's great country stars. He is Americana personified. He is exactly what an American master should be.
He is a true traditional country singer, and he's sincere about it, and he loves what he's doing. That's what he is. That's what he wants to be remembered as. One of the country singers who was truly loyal to the business. He loves other country artists.
I was just born to be exactly what you see. Nothing more or less. Not the worst or the best.
Nobody knows how Charley Pride felt in this town with this dream he had of playing country music where there wasn't a lot of Charley Prides in country music. And I just got to say that that's a fight I can't even give you an answer for or relate to.
I don't know if he sees himself as this modern day hero the way that the rest of us see him, because I think we understand the magnitude of what it was that he was able to accomplish, and whether or not he sees himself as a pioneer, we all do.
I can imagine what it was like. You know, the 30s and 40s were such a tough time for African Americans. I can imagine in Sledge, Mississippi, what that was like. As tough as it was, it made him see the world in a very unique and beautiful way.
There are still a lot of people growing up in Mississippi who need to know that story of what Charley Pride did in music and what he represents. There are people in Mississippi today who don't know that story still. We have to keep reaching out and reminding the young men and women of the state, every generation, that there is hope.
There's always been a handful of people with global appeal that was beyond just the face value of the culture of country music. And Mr. Pride is absolutely one of those folks.
Oh Lord, I don't know what I do. All I do is sit and sigh. Oh Lord, that last long day, she said goodbye. You Lord, I thought I would cry. She do me, she do you, she got the kind of loving. Lord, I love to hear her when she called me sweet and such a beautiful dream.
I can't imagine anybody sitting with their eyes shut, listening to a pair of speakers. When that man starts singing, you don't go, oh my God, that's an artist right there. And is it country music? You bet your ass it's country music.
That's the career you want when you're starting music. You want a career that's lasted decades, and you've had your shining moments, and when you're on the back end of that career, people still want to come hang out with you.
This fellow that took a chance, he wound up
with 69 chart records, 52 in the top 10, and 29 #1 records.
There are a lot of people raised like Charley Pride, same background as Charley Pride, but didn't become that other.
Why you stand beside me, I don't know. There's so many places a girl like you could go. I hope you see enough in me to make you wanna stay. 'Cause it seems I'm always standing in my way.
As a black man, looking up to the only black male in country music was a huge thing for me. I see country music opening up to a lot more diversity and cultural differences. Thank you for not quitting. Thank you for being courageous, because you have inspired me to step out and join the country music family.
He's like Hank Sr., he's like Willie, he's like Dolly. He's just part of the history and part of what's important in country music. The biggest legacy is he left behind a cachet of music that is just awesome. That's divine. It's country music royalty.
Well, Jack Clement used to tell me, he says, Charlie, he says, the songs we record now, said 50 years from now, they're going to be wanting to hear them, and you're going to be they're going to be wanting you to sing them. And he's just about spot on.
I'm always there wherever I am. There between what I'm reaching for and the fingers on my hand. But it seems I'm always standing in my way.
To order Charley Pride, I'm Just Me on DVD, visit Shop PBS or call 1-800-PLAY-PBS. American Master Series is also available on Amazon Prime Video.
I'd step aside if I could, 'cause I live for your embrace. But it seems I'm always standing in my way. I'm always there wherever I am. There between what I'm reaching for and the fingers on my